What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to part 3 of the Camaro transmission swap series, mini-series. We are so close to getting this thing fired up. I'm pumped. I've been getting the odds and ends finished up here on the thing. The stupid wiring, stuff like that, I'm not very good at, but I tested it, it works, did the best that I could do with what I have. So we'll go over everything in a minute. We're gonna kind of pick up where we left off. If you haven't seen where we are, any of the other older videos, go watch those so you get caught up and you're not completely lost. But what we have left to do is the fan, plumbing of the lines to go to the transcooler fan, and the wiring as well. I did get the wiring situated, but I'll just go over briefly how to do that because it was a lot of tucking the wires, hiding them best I can, looming them, stuff like that, which is kind of time consuming. But once I started, I couldn't stop. Got the transmission dipstick right here for now. I just got one off Amazon. This is not the best dipstick out in the world, but it works. We're gonna use it because I needed to be flexible. That's why I got that. I had one that came with it, but it didn't fit. It was the original OG dipstick. But just real quick, battery. If you're doing this on the Camaro, it's gonna be right here. Last video I showed you that bung, a little rubber boot that was right here for the trunk. This is where all the wires came up from the fan, and the relay that I got is also going to be right here, as you can see. The only thing the relay doesn't come with is a fuse, inline fuse, which I had actually one here. So I did put a fuse in there. It takes a 30 amp fuse. Oops, yeah, I got a 20 in there now, but I need to get a 30 in there to remind myself of that. But that was just to test it and make sure it works. So to go over, let me grab my sheet. Wiring. You buy the relay from same people that I have the fan from, Derail. Literally gives you simple instructions on wiring it up. So if you're doing multiple fans, there's diagrams for that stuff too. But for the most part, you just follow the simple instructions. So red goes to the battery, black obviously goes to a ground. The yellow wire goes to your thermostat switch. So I don't want to mess this up. Let me zoom in so y'all can see. All right, so yellow wire goes to one of the prongs here in the thermostat switch, which we have conveniently right there. Very nice. Using the female connector they give you in the kit, and then let's see, the attached remaining thermostat. Oh, so the other lead, so you use one for the yellow wire, then you put another connector on there, run the wire to your ignition source, which to me that's this wire that's loomed up. It comes off the relay here. I'm sorry, it comes off the prong on the thermostat switch. I have it coming through here and running down up through here. This goes all the way to the front to ignition fuse by the car door on the inside. So however you want to do that, but I just have it go into ignition. So when I put the key in, it gets power to the relay. All right, and then optional is a green wire. So if you want to have it, has a diode in it, and if you want to run an override for your AC, so when your AC cuts on, this will override the relay, or pretty much run it immediately and turn the power to it so it cuts on the fan. So I left that alone for now. I just kind of taped it out of the way, but everything is grounded and it does work. I did heat up the thermostat with a torch and once it reached 180, which was quick, the car key was on, turned on, and the fan cut on. And as soon as it cooled down, went to 165, the relay shut off, or the power got killed, and that was it. So that is a brief example. I suck at wiring, not gonna lie. I probably didn't do the cleanest of jobs, but most of the time this is obviously going to be covered up, so I'm not too worried about it, and it's easy accessible to relay. Instead of having to run all these wires underneath the car to the front, I just figured it'd be easier that way. So that is it. These instructions are awesome. If you don't want to use these, you can get your own relay, but since I'm not the best, like I said, at making wiring stuff happen, I just literally got theirs because I knew it was their fan, their relay. Everything should be perfect if done correctly and wired up correctly, which, like I said, I tested it, it worked. So, progress. That is it for the wiring. I say that's it, but I still have not really wiring to do, but in a minute here, I'm gonna be going to my buddy's Chris's. He's helped me out a ton on my car so far. He's going to weld a 1/2-inch nut right here. That way, I did get the sensor from GM that came out of the factory TR6060 for my trans temp, and this is gonna plug up with the sensor right in there. Of course, these will all be nice and tucked up out of the way. I just need this one, but that'll plug up in the back there. And then we can put the pan back in, put all the bolts in, and fill it up with fluid, and we should be good to go. The final thing, I guess I haven't seen it since part 2, but we have a Texas-made drive shaft. I went ahead and put the cover up here. I just got to put the bolts in right here. Perfect, all Sonix parts. And I did go with 3-inch, so I was gonna have to wait another week if I wanted 3.5. But if you look at, this is just for Camaros, of course, but this is 3-inch, which is still bigger than the factory one right there. But it is very tight. I mean, this, especially with having the offset diff bushings I have in here, this picks the whole diff up a good bit. If you had the factory diff, you'd probably get away with 3.5-inch drive shaft, but I knew that this diff was up closer to the gas tank, and especially the e-brake cables, which you can see they're moved out of the way from before. And I actually have hit this cable with the factory drive shaft because of the rubber on the end of it was actually nicking this, and I had to move it up higher and zip it out of the way. But this is pretty freaking tight. I'm really glad I went with 3-inch because I actually had it in stock and I got it a lot sooner than having to wait for 3.5-inch aluminum. But I know it's not as strong, but to be honest with you, with everything that I have, I would be really worried about that more than anything. This is stock. Got new gears in it, but it's still stock diff, stock axles, like I've said. So I am hoping this will hang in there for as long as it can, because being one piece now, all the power, there's nothing absorbed like the 2-piece drive shaft. With the carry bearing in the middle, some of that power is absorbed through there. So I am sure 100% power is coming straight out of here and hitting this diff. This diff is going to go. But we're gonna ride it to the chrome, so the chrome falls off, people will say. So there you go. So what we need to do for part 3 is get our lines run. So I did start one of the lines, the 400, just to kind of get an idea. And you can see, let's see if I can get it in here. All right, so there's one of the lines. going to the top. Right there, and then here's the other fitting. So you got the in and out. It is marked on the case. The guy marked it with Sharpie, but those go down the side here. I have, these are -6. I have 45 degrees fitting right here coming off, and I'm gonna do another one right here going above, follow along here. It drops down right here. I have it just kind of tucked right there. I do have these I plan on putting in, just reusing that factory bolt. I'll just get a nut for it. That was on the car already. It's going to, this is loosely, not zip tied up, or I haven't put any fasteners on it because I wanted to just mock it up and see. But it's going to run from there along the side here, go up, over. Let me switch sides. So it goes up and over and drops down as the sun blinds it right there. So that being said, I have it coming right over that upper control arm, and I'll zip tie this up out of the way, but it'll look something like that. I just got to cut the excess off. This was 15 feet. I probably needed about 10. I've been 12 foot, I'm not sure. But rather have more than not enough. So I did get some more in line. I'm going to run that. And I got 10 feet because I don't think I'll need any more than that. But this will be going in through here so we can get the actual fluid reading, how hot the fluid is before it leaves transmission cooler. And then after, it'll come out through here, go back to the Turbo 400. And then we are good. So enough talking, kind of explained it. We're gonna get to putting the other transmission line on, and then we can take our pan off, go get that fixed, bring it back, bolt it in, add fluid. Oh, and I still have to put the torque converter bolts on. That's probably important. Yes, so I have 3 of these. We're gonna put those on with red Loctite, and then we should be able to start it up, add fluid. I got brand new JW Performance transmission racing fluid. I got that as well as 6 quarts of ATF, plus what was left in there. There's good fluid in there. So I should have enough to fill this up. You want to run this, get it warmed up and then check. That's part of the reason why I've been waiting to get this sensor in, so I can see how, when the transmission's actually warm enough. And then we can check fluid levels, get it right. And then we should be done, just waiting on this empty space to be filled, which I didn't even go over. So last thing, and then we'll hit a time lapse. The D1SC, sign on. It is getting sent back to me loosely, so if you guys need a D1SC and anyone who needs it, let me know. The guy's taking his parts that he rebuilt it with out. I still have the old parts, so the gears and bearings, all that fun stuff is going to be missing out of it. So I'll be getting it back opened up. He said he'll pack everything up individually, but it'll be opened up and those will be missing out of it. If you guys want a good deal on a D1SC, because I decided just to go to an F1A94, then let me know, because it's just going to be a hood or shelf ornament until then, and I'll probably put it on Facebook and stuff, but obviously I don't need it. But yeah, we're going to go to an F-Series Pro Charger. It's been ordered. It's on the way. Just said do it because now, since we're this far, I knew that D1, well, I didn't say I knew. I was convinced that the D1 would be maxed out if I went back with the same one, and I'd be mad and then want to order a bigger one and then spend the money, more money. So just spend the money now, especially with prices going crazy up every day it seems like. Go ahead and get it now. And the F1894 is, per their website, good for about 1,300 horsepower. So obviously overkill because we know we need a fuel system on this car. And that'll have to wait a little bit now, but I'll pretty much just go up in pulley size to keep the boost level about the same and keep the fuel happy and everything. My tuner is going to pretty much do that stuff. But I did talk to ProCharger, figure out the right pulley size. I believe I need a 4.5-inch pulley instead of the 4 I had on there on the D1. They go up to a 4.5 inch. Might just do a 4.63 inches pulley. It doesn't go like by quarter. It goes by weird decimals on their chart. So that'd be the pulley up from the 4.5 inch. Just to play it safe. Because like I said, I don't want to obviously hurt the motor because, you know, I run it too lean because the fuel end's not there right now. So yeah, we're going to a big blower. 3 to 5 weeks, I would say probably mid-January. I should have it here, and then we can drop the car off up north in North Carolina at SSLSX and get them to tune it. Hopefully, I know he's booked big time, but he said it's just a retune, and I kind of told him what's going on with the car. He could hopefully get me done in a week, 2 weeks, just kind of throw me in there real quick, retune it, and then I can come pick it up and take it home. But that's if, obviously, everything we've done so far goes very well, and we won't know until a minute. So let's finish up this finish up putting the AN lines on, tighten everything up, lock it all down, and then get the pan off, tighten the torque converter bolts, put fluid in it once you get the pan sensor welded in. Good to go. Let's go. All right, so we got the lines attached to the transmission. I'm just about to start running them. I had to stop what I was doing because my buddy Chris was going to weld a bung to the transmission pan. So that is pretty clean. I say pretty clean. It's pretty awesome. Did a perfect job on it, as always. Shout out to Chris. Pretty simple. It is a 1/2-inch MPT thread, if anyone's want to know. This is a factory TR6060 sensor, and your part number is right there if you want to do this exact setup. But screws right in. That way I can use my factory trans temp gauge, and you just need a 1/2-inch. He had a 1/2-inch piece right here that he had at his shop and brought it home, welded it up for me. I went to Lowe's to see if I could get something to work, and since this is stainless or carbon, needed to have also the same weld to it. So I went to Lowe's. If you want to do this, you can. Obviously, he had a better idea with what he had supply-wise, so we went with his. So it's a lot cleaner look, I guess you could say. But this is a 1/2-inch, just in the plumbing department at Lowe's. Brass fitting, and then you got what I could find. Your store might be different, but a stainless steel threaded 1/2-inch pitch on each side, and was going to cut this off, weld it where that is right there, and then put this out. But that would have moved the sensor out a lot. So yeah, I guess no one would have saw it, but still, it's a lot cleaner doing obviously that route instead. But just in case, you can definitely do this. This B&M pan is too thin to tap, he said, so get you a cast deep pan. If you got it already, you can just tap it 1/2 inch and then screw that in there, however you want to do it. But this worked, so this is what we're going with. I'm still going to continue routing my lines real quick. Have one more line to do, and then we will put some clamps, rubber insulated clamps down I got here. Just kind of go along the bottom, make everything nice, zip tie it all together, and then run it to our fan. And then we can put this back on the pan, the gasket on the pan, and put the pan back on the Turbo 400. Fill it up with fluid and probably, exhaust. I'm going to put the exhaust back on so we can start it up and then go through the gears, hook the linkage back up, and then torque converter bolts. So last few things to do before we fire this sucker up. So let's finish it up. All right, so it's actually 2 days later now. Finished everything that you've seen so far. All we had left was to get the torque converter bolts on, but ran into kind of a problem, which I'll kind of go over here in a second, on getting the converter bolts not lined up with the flex plates. They are lined up, but the correct spacing. So I thought it was correct, but it was actually wrong. And what was wrong was actually the adapter that I had on there previously. You can see I cut it up because I was going to do something, which I'll explain in a second. But we had the adapter on the converter. Initially had the transmission stabbed into the back of the motor, and when I went to go put the bolts in, had everything lined up, it would only slide forward maybe 1/8 of an inch, and then there still was a gap about that much between the converter and the flex plate, between the pads. And I was like, oh, okay, no biggie, I'll just put a shim in there. Then I was thinking about it, and I was like, aren't those pads supposed to be mated to the flex plate, ideally? Because then it's not pulling the converter out of the transmission enough, and I don't want to damage the pump, obviously, on that. So called JW, called friends, had friends come over, help me out, and a lot of numbers and measuring with the macrometer, and pretty much took the transmission in and out twice. Tried just dry fitting the converter on the flex plate without the adapter, and the actual, I guess, nipple on the converter was sitting into the crank just ever so slightly. And apparently that's just essentially a guide to keep the harmonics in place for the converter as it spins. So what I was told when I called JW, they said they want that to sit inside the crank 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.125 of an inch. I was getting probably 3/4 of that actual nipple on the converter, I'm just gonna call it that, into the crank, and it was kind of like what do I do? Do I scratch it, get a new converter, or, and that's what this adapter came in, do I cut an 1/8 off the adapter and have it welded to the converter? But if it's not perfect, like this is such a small tolerance, if this isn't perfectly on the converter when it goes in, if it's up or down, left or right, probably like 1/1000th off, it'll seize into the crank or have issues or just ride terrible. And it's like, do you want to risk that? I mean, it sat in there a little bit. Like I said, it probably sat in there that much because it has a tapered edge on the converter and a tapered edge on the crank. So I got it and centered it in there, and the tapered edge and then maybe a little bit more was in there. So I don't know. It's hard to kind of measure that stuff, and you could probably, what I was thinking about it earlier, I was like, I probably could have put grease on there, dry fitted just the converter, and measure how much grease gets pushed in towards the crank of that hole and measure that amount. But through talking to different people who've done this and know these transmissions pretty much, he said, it's in there, based on what I've told them, he's like, just try it out, send it. Worst case, the converter doesn't, like, you'll know, doesn't do it like its job properly, or it gets damaged, whatever, I'd rather that get messed up end of the day than the fully built motor 416 I have. So I kind of had to weigh my options, I guess. So hopefully that's not your case. Good measuring tool would be to get a flat edge, put it on one of the pads, and run it all the way to the actual nipple on the converter in the middle, and measure that distance between the pad, because the pad's going to be higher than the converter, or if I might have that vice versa. Anyway, you want to measure that distance, which I measured 0.3, which is over 1/8 of an inch. So by math, that should sit into the crank enough. It was just hard to do that and have a converter in the way and measure and everything like that. So like I said, hopefully that kind of sheds light on it. I went ahead, since I had my buddies here helping me, we went ahead, I had him rotate the crank assembly and put the bolts in the side. I did have to take the starter out just to be easier. I probably could have made it work without it, but I did have them rotated as I put the bolts in. So with the starter's right here usually. I have it sitting right there. But yeah, so I had them rotate this as I tightened everything up. Tightened everything. And you want to do these, I have the instructions over there somewhere. These are a 5/8 bolt. We torqued them with red Loctite to 30 foot-pounds and put them on there finger tight at first, and keep rotating. Once you get everything finger tight, start putting it down or torquing it down, tightening it down evenly. So do one and then rotate, do another one. Just kind of a time-consuming thing, and definitely helps having someone there rotating everything instead of having to get up like 50 times like I did the night before. And then once you get everything tight and snug, then you can start your torque. So I did 30 foot-pounds. If you have a smaller bolt, I believe it's 20. If it's bigger bolt, I think it's 35. So I went in the middle because the instructions, I don't think, had a torque spec for the 5/8. So I had to make do. But these are ARPs, so I feel pretty happy with it. But I can hopefully maybe slide this in here so y'all can see. Let's see if I can get a good angle on this. I don't know if the lighting is gonna work. Okay. So the shiny part, those are the ARP bolts on the flex plate. shiny part there is that's the torque converter. So you can see how much of it is still obviously out, but there is a good bit of it in to the actual crank itself. So like I said, this is just to line everything up, and then you're actually keeping its position with having the pads tightened up against the flex plate. And it's a flex plate for a reason. It's going to flex. That's why you want everything kind of centered. But you can see how much room I have in here. Before I had probably half of that. So I know for a fact it wasn't coming out of the transmission enough. So that was kind of what we're gonna deal with. I did find out too, this is I looked up the serial number and I called the company. This is a 3200. I've been saying 35 or 38, I can't remember. There's actually a 3200 installed. So it'll work for now. Ideally, I probably wanna be higher based on my setup. So I think what I'm gonna do eventually is go to a PTC converter. We're gonna use this one obviously for now because it was part of the trade I did with the manual swap. And if it works, great. If not, you know, obviously I'll need to get one spec'd for my build. Plus with going to the F1A 94, this one I think said on the sheet it's built for a mild power adder, but yeah, I don't think we're past the mild now. So might need one a little more heavier duty down the way, but gonna run it and see how it does. Still things to do. Since I took the transmission out again, I disconnect the lines, take the drive shaft out. Linkage has to go back on, obviously. Plug my sensor in for the trans temp and put the starter back. Add fluid, and we're good to go. So we will hopefully be firing this up here in a minute, but that is, I hope someone, you know, who has maybe the similar issue, it didn't make sense. And like I said, I could have welded that piece I cut onto the converter, but I don't want to do that because, like I said, I don't want to damage the motor at all, or put too much pressure on the thrust bearings. I'd rather it tear up the pump or in the 400. I know I don't want anything bad to happen, obviously, but I'd rather it hurt this than the motor because I don't want to pull this motor. This motor's built, it's still fresh and new, so that's shedding light on that scenario. That's why it's kind of been a minute, but a lot of math and, like I said, trial and error. So we're gonna keep on. I'm gonna put my lines back on that I took off, tighten up the cross member, put bolts in that, and then we will fire this up. So there you go, let's get it. Okay, so we got everything buttoned up. Have the car battery hooked back up. Everything's nice and neat under there. So we got power. The exhaust is just kind of sitting there for now, until I get all the fluid in there. I'll tighten the exhaust back up 100%, but put our intake elbow back on, added fluid. Side note, these actually kind of suck versus the factory Turbo 400 dipsticks because that hole is just super small. And I had to actually trim like a transmission filter just enough to get it to sit in there correctly, so I could add fluid very slowly. So I just did, I think, 6 quarts to get it started, and then we will kind of go from there. But everything else is buttoned up, so we can go ahead and fire it up, let it run for a minute. Make sure my battery's not dead, because that would suck. this up. Watch that transept gauge. I think I hooked up the right one, I'm not sure. Oh, that's the transmission fluid I spilt. That'll come off, right? Burn off. Oh yeah. Leaking all down in there. Let me wipe that off real quick. Oh, that's hot. It's spicy. Yeah, I knew that. I'm just an idiot, so. Well, it worked. For now. Gonna need to go through the gears. Let's do that. Watch that. I don't think that's gonna do any harm. I did zip tie the pedal up right there. So that's why I am getting it to start. This is just for the manuals. Let me try it again here. There we go. Doesn't like a cold start sometimes. I do want to, before I get too crazy, hang that up because I don't want to melt. Oh, come on. Be so rude. Ah, there we go. Okay. Just snug that up. There we go. Oh, see, that one wasn't even tight. I need to tighten that one. The only other one I can think of is, what is that? That's a fluid of some sort right there. Is these up here, which I don't see any leaks there. I don't know what this fluid is. I need to find out. Don't know how. Oh no, it is transmission fluid. It is red right there. It must have leaked. It leaked all the way down here. Wow, I didn't think I spilt that much. All right, so that's gonna burn right off. Oh, headers are shiny now, that's nice. All right, so everything is now buttoned up. I ran it almost to like 10-15 minutes-ish, and everything worked great. The seat's back in, the factory seat's in for now, and we are good. No leaks, everything's perfect. The fluid, I had to add an extra 4 quarts, obviously, because it only had 6 in it. So I had 10. Actually, I might have had, no, I had I have 11 quarts in there, so I still might be a quart shy on these because it does have a deep pan. I'm gonna check it once I get some more fuel in here because I'm running like pretty much on fumes right now, but everything works great. The only issue I still have left is this shifter is not wanting to seat. So this is still popping up a little bit. So I might have to take it out, play with it just a touch more and Dremel it some. But everything else looks great. Goes through all the gears properly. No complaints there. Let's see. Oh, trans temp gauge was correct on here. There's two pigtails on the factory wiring harness for the manual that are the same exact color. So they're purple and black. I just went ahead and I had it right the first time. The second I tried the other pigtail on there, I'll show you. Immediately the trans temperature went away. So I knew like it went down. There was no gauge whatsoever. So like I said, there's two pigtails on here. One is, get this out of here. So one is purple like that, and this is the one that you actually need. It is also purple, but it is orange, black wire, and then like a white wire, almost like creamish color. That is the one you need. If you're doing the same exact thing, that one looks to be a purple and white wire. That is not the right one. So if you're planning on using this harness and doing this, run the sensor, that is a pigtail you need, or connection you need to go into the sensor to get your trans temp. But it does work. It operates when this warmed up. The actual factory gauge was moving some. It got up to about 160 degrees, and I had to shut it off because I was just running on, like I said, on fumes. But everything else is good. Like I said, there's no leaks that I can find of any sort. I haven't thrown an engine code yet, but I'm sure I will. Like I said, when it starts driving and getting actual speed, I'll do that tomorrow because it's raining tonight. But that is it. It's a little bit of fluid right there, I guess. I'll look at it here. Let's see if I can wipe that. I don't know if that's left over from draining out the back of the transmission or what, but the hardest thing is just getting all the fluid in there correctly. There is, obviously with these 400s, when it goes into gear, it kind of hits the diff. So it does kind of shake it into gear real quick. You'll notice that a lot of cars, drag cars and street cars, race cars, they all, when they have the 400s in them, when you put them into gear, it like drops straight down into gear and it locks in, it feels like. So that'll take some getting used to, because when I first did it, I didn't have my foot on the brake enough, and it shook the car. I was like, holy crap. So definitely firmly press the brake if you're new to this, like me, but everything else looks great. The only test I didn't get to tonight, but I will once it gets more fuel in here, is just double checking, making sure the fan cuts on when it gets to 180. Like I said, I couldn't run the car anymore because I'm literally on E. I didn't want to run out of fuel, but once I get more fuel in there, I'll run it and let it get all the way up to operating temp and make sure those fans cut on, and then it should cut off at 165. So that is pretty much it. Anyone need a drive shaft, let me know. But hopefully that helps, and that concludes the 400 swap. Difficulty, if it wasn't for the converter, I'd probably say less difficult, but since I had the converter spacing dilemma with the whole adapter, no adapter thing, I would give this probably a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. If it was the converter, everything was just bolt up, I would say a 6.5. Give an extra point because of the converter difficulties. That took like a day of figuring out, but that is how you do it. If you have any questions, let me know. Up next is going to be getting this car to the dyno with the F1A94 on there. Super pumped about that, but now we wait because I have nothing I can do in the meantime. So like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, like I said, let me know down in the comments below. And thank you so much for everyone that subscribed. If you haven't, my goal, like I said, is 150 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'm like 3 away, so super pumped. If we can get 150, I'd be stoked. But like I said, thank y'all so much, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.